Okay, we are good to go. So welcome everybody to the webinar with our guest tonight, who is Cynthia Stine with me. Again, I apologize for the technical issues that we had earlier, so sorry about the late start. Hopefully those are now worked out and we'll be good to go from here on out. Some people I can see are filtering back into the webinar, which is great. But as I mentioned, we have our guest Cynthia Stine with us tonight, who is a well-respected services provider in the Amazon seller community. You may have seen her speak at a variety of events or interact with you on Facebook in the various groups that are out there for Amazon sellers at this point in time. So she is here today to discuss on a wide variety of topics, including suspension, what not to do and do with suppliers and products, and all sorts of good stuff in terms of policies and just how to protect yourself in general. So she's a great resource for everyone to know and leverage if it's ever needed. And I'll let her kind of give her own little intro as well, but then we'll kick it off with Cynthia. She has a quick PowerPoint for everyone to kind of go over her general services and what she normally tells everybody, and then we will open up the webinar to questions and answers from all of you, and we'll take it from there. So Cynthia.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here tonight, and I know a lot of you are from all over the place. There's quite a few of you from Chicago, so I want to say hi. I'm going to be in Chicago next week, and I love Chicago when it's not snowing. And tonight I'm going to talk about a couple of things, but before I get started, I thought I would just tell you, a little bit about how I got started with this. So I've been a business consultant for over 25 years, and I started selling on Amazon in 2010, and at the time, FBA was like a really new thing that nobody knew about, and wrote a book, Make Thousands on Amazon in 10 hours a week. And I started selling myself, and people would hire me to consult with them, like, why aren't I making any money, that kind of thing. And so from there, which was fun, and I did classes, and I've even come to Chicago and done some classes, which was really fun. And one day people started calling me and saying, I've been suspended, can you help me? And I would look at their appeals, and I thought, anything I do would be better than this. So, because some of them were pretty bad. And I thought, yeah, let's give it a shot. And had some really great success, learned a lot, and sort of officially started offering reinstatement services last April. So it's just been a little over a year. And then the doors just blew off, right? Amazon made a major tweak to their algorithm, and all of a sudden a lot of people were getting suspended who had never ever had trouble with Amazon before. These were good sellers, and they were just shocked because the rules had changed and their buddy Amazon had forgotten to tell them. So that is how we got started. Since that time, I've built up a company. I have 8 consultants in the United States, and I have 16 analysts in the Philippines, helping our clients do all kinds of things. Obviously get reinstated, but we also try to help our clients avoid being suspended in the first place, and we also try to help them put best practices into their businesses, because a lot of times the reason they got in trouble was because of how they do business. So that's a little background on me. And let me just pull up my little PowerPoint here.
Cynthia, I'll give you control.
Okay. Okay, can you guys see my screen? I hope.
If you guys can see Cynthia's screen, someone send me a question? Yes, okay, good.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep, really good.
All right, well, let's get started.
Can you guys all hear us as well? Someone's reporting that there's no audio. Can you guys hear? Yes, all right. So David, It looks like you're the one with the audio issue, unfortunately, so maybe check your speakers. I'm not sure, but everyone seems to be able to hear. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. So what's going on with Amazon? Because I will tell you, every single time I talk about Amazon, it's a little bit different because things are constantly changing at Amazon in terms of what they're suspending, what they're interested in. Every time they tweak the algorithm, we know it because something happened.
Cynthia, 1 second. I think we are missing your PowerPoint screen on your Facebook page.
Oh, you can't see my PowerPoint?
Nope. Where it says we see your Facebook page.
That's weird. Okay, hold on.
Maybe drag it over to the other screen if you have two.
Oh, shoot. Well, I'm doing this on my laptop, so it should only show one.
Try clicking on your PowerPoint program at the bottom in the window.
I don't know what to do here. This is weird. All right, so I'm just trying to think how to pull this up. Do you see it now?
I see your Facebook. Does everyone see a Facebook or a PowerPoint? Maybe it's just me.
No.
Facebook, yeah. We see Facebook.
Okay. Well, how about now?
Click on the PowerPoint icon on the bottom of your bottom programs. Click on.
And then what?
Can you try closing Facebook out or no?
I'm just afraid if I do, I'll lose this webinar.
Hang on.
Right, because it's my browser.
I'm switching back. I switched back to me for a second. Sorry, guys. Bear with us.
It worked earlier, Eddie. And I didn't change a thing.
Cynthia, can you email me that PowerPoint real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, it's on its way.
All right, give me a second.
So Eddie was so good having us practice ahead of time and get it all set up. And then everything has gone to hell. And I didn't change anything, Eddie. Everything went to hell.
Yeah, it was one of those things that, of course, we tried to practice and it didn't work out properly, naturally.
Yeah, the practice was great.
Yeah.
You guys should have been here at 7.
Good news is I have your thing emailed, so 1 sec. Okay, now you guys should be able to see my screen, which is Cynthia's PowerPoint. Someone confirm that you can see Feeding Frenzy. Yeah.
I can.
Cool.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. Awesome. Whew. Thank you all. Appreciate it. All right. So just tell me when you want me to forward Cynthia, and I'll control for you.
Okay. Next slide.
All right.
Okay. So this is me. I told you a little bit about me. I have a long history as a business consultant, which is why this was a natural fit for me. And my team has grown quite a bit, and we call ourselves seller advocates because we're on the side of the seller, because we are sellers. Most of us on the consulting side run our own Amazon businesses, so we totally understand the life of a seller. And we also understand what a pain in the ass it is to work with Seller Central. Okay, next slide. Okay, so tonight I thought I'd just talk about a few things that are really hot, excuse me, hot with Amazon right now. And so, for the next slide. Okay, so this is a little pop quiz because, you know, most people would think that if somebody was selling stolen goods or counterfeit that we wouldn't be able to get them back on the platform, but we have. And we've had clients whose ODR was nearly 90%. When you consider how low the ODR is supposed to be, I mean, we really sweated when we took this guy on. And linked accounts, again, we've gotten a lot of people back with linked accounts. The issues that give us the most trouble and where we sometimes can't get people back is inauthentic. So I wanted to talk about that first because this has been an ongoing issue that doesn't seem to be going away. Some of the other things that Amazon goes after, they're kind of like trendy for a while and then they stop being a problem. Inauthentic is just going strong. Next slide. So I just wanted to show you a little bit by what Amazon means by inauthentic. So when it says inauthentic, it means where you're buying your merchandise for the most part. When we signed that long-ass contract with Amazon, we promised that we would be responsible for the authenticity of the goods that we sell. So from Amazon's perspective, that means that at any moment we should be able to prove where we bought our inventory and that we bought it from a legitimate source. So when Amazon gets complaints of inauthentic, counterfeit, fake, even sometimes used, sold as new, and things like that, they begin to wonder, where did you buy your inventory that people think it's not legit? Because I will tell you right now, most of the complaints on Amazon like this that you get from buyers are perception problems, right? Your buyer has a perception problem, and they think there's something wrong with your inventory. Now, Amazon knows that most of the time your inventory is probably authentic, right? They get that, but they are required to follow up on this. And so because they're required to follow up on this, they ask you to produce your invoices. So when you produce invoices that or receipts that aren't clear or that don't prove that you bought your sales from a legitimate source, well, now you're screwed. And so I have this example here of a Marshall's receipt, because I know a lot of people buy at Marshall's and TJ Maxx and places like that. I used to. I don't anymore, but I used to too. And the problem is that their receipts are not detailed enough. So if you look at this picture, and I know it may be hard to see on some screens, it'll have like a number, and it will say, kids footwear or girls, but it won't say what it is. And the number that it gives, like there's a little number after it, is not the UPC code. That is Marshall's internal code for that product. So there's really no way for Amazon to know that that's actually a pair of Crocs that you bought and sold on Amazon. And I will tell you this people don't like it when I say this, but even if it was crystal clear, they may still sometimes give you trouble because they think that anything that you resell that you bought at a retail store is used. So when you're buying something at Target, it's new when it's on the shelf. It's new when you're checking out. When you step outside those big doors, it is suddenly used. Now, they're not going to give you grief about it unless you're starting to get all of these complaints. So if you start to get used, sold as new, or inauthentic, or counterfeit, or fake from these items that you're buying retail arbitrage, then they're going to shut you down, basically. So it's one of those things, you can get away with it and sell it new as long as the product is perfect and nobody's complaining. They start complaining, you're out of there. You can't sell it. You can't sell that item from Marshall's or Target or whatever anymore. So, and I mentioned Target because their receipts are pretty good. They're usually not a problem. But if the product isn't good, then it's a problem. And online arbitrage is even worse. I think, is that the next slide, Eddie? No, that's ungated. All right. So I'll do online arbitrage in a minute. So so here's people. Here, this is a related issue. People are complaining because they're trying to get into ungated, into gated categories, right? They want to sell grocery or health and beauty, and they keep getting rejected over and over and over again, and they don't know why. And so basically, it's usually because Amazon thinks you're buying from the gray market. So they don't like your supplier, and if they don't like your supplier, they're not going to approve you. And so that's very frustrating to a lot of people because they don't know what Amazon means by the gray market. What does this mean that it's inauthentic? What is the gray market? Well, the gray market is basically where there's so many middlemen between you and the manufacturer that it's not really clear where the inventory came from originally. And so, for example, inauthentic or gray market goods are a problem because sometimes people sell stolen goods that way, right? So it's authentic goods, but it's illegally obtained. And I always tell people if that deal seems unbelievable, it probably is. And there are plenty of people who have sold stolen goods on Amazon, either because they were naive or they were just, I don't know, greedy. So that's why Amazon cracks down on this so much. But basically, if you have to go through a lot of, if someone says, okay, trace your product back to the manufacturer, and you have to go through like 3 or 4 or 5 different companies before you can get back to the manufacturer, that's a problem. That's a problem for Amazon. That's a problem for you. And so liquidators are another example of gray market goods. So if you're buying from a liquidator, Amazon considers that to be gray market because even though the liquidator may be picking up their merchandise from, Target or Macy's closeout, or they may be, getting it from retail stores, the fact is you lose sort of the chain of custody when you're buying from a liquidator, and you don't really know where they got it, where they got every single piece. And the liquidator doesn't know either because they're buying things by the truckload. So that's part of the problem with liquidators, people buying from liquidators and selling on Amazon. So if they don't like your supplier, they'll never ungate you. If you aren't serious, they can tell. So there's a lot of people who say, well, I want to get ungated in health and beauty, and they basically then want to go to Target or somewhere and buy product and resell on Amazon, which Amazon does not want. When you fill out the form to get ungated, they basically, they ask you up front, are you going to be buying from directly from manufacturers? And most people say yes, because you can't get ungated unless you say yes. And then, then they go, but their plan is really to do retail arbitrage or online arbitrage. So just so you know, that is against what you signed. You told Amazon when you got ungated that you weren't going to buy from these sources, right? So if you come and bring them receipts or invoices from, online retailers or, something like that, they're not going to accept them. In fact, they don't take receipts anymore at all. It has to be an invoice from a wholesaler, and it has to be a wholesaler that they know about and approve. So that's part of the reason why so many people are having trouble getting ungated, because Amazon does not like their invoices. And here's another thing. A lot of people who buy from China or even here in the U.S., the supplier is giving them Excel spreadsheets as their invoice. Amazon will not accept Excel spreadsheets, even though they're saved as PDFs and they look like a normal invoice. The fact is, Amazon knows that's what they are. Highly easy to manipulate, easy to fake. They won't accept them. So think about that. Now when you think about a supplier, you have to not only make sure that they're getting their stuff from legitimate sources, but you also have to make sure that the invoice will pass Amazon. Yay. Okay, next one. So a special note for my colleagues who do online arbitrage. Inauthentic is any source that Amazon can't verify. So, you know, unfortunately. And so I'm getting an echo there, Eddie.
Are you?
Is anybody else getting an echo?
I can hear you fine. Anyone else have sound issues?
Okay, I'll keep going.
Okay.
I mean, I can hear the echo, like it's coming through your speaker or something.
Can everybody else hear? If you can, yeah. If you can hear properly, can you, no, they're hearing the feedback too. What the heck? Huh.
Try muting, Eddie.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so Eddie's muted and the feedback is gone. Okay, so I think that was it, Eddie. It was somehow coming back through your speakers or something.
Okay. So it seems like it's better now. Is it better now? Can you hear it still?
Yeah, when I talk, I can hear it. So, well, when I'm talking, you'll just mute, okay?
Okay, hang on one second.
Okay. No.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. So, anyone? Oh, no. That's bad, Eddie.
All right, hang on. If I mute you, then I can't hear when you're ready to go. Hang on.
Well, no. Can't you just mute your computer?
I can mute the sound, but then I won't hear you talk. That's the problem.
Oh. Can you put on a headset?
Hang on.
It's weird because we weren't having feedback before.
Yeah.
Actually, it seems to be okay for the moment. I'm going to talk.
Okay. Good now?
Okay, so inauthentic is any source that Amazon can't verify. So I wrote down here, current online retailers at Amazon is refusing their receipts. And, you know, these are big name stores. And by the way, Amazon doesn't even accept them from their own store, which is weird. And definitely anything you buy from eBay, they will not accept. Not as new. Now, probably okay as used. And it used to be that anything you sold as used wouldn't really be a problem. So sometimes people would buy stuff and they would sell it as used, you know, very good or used like new. You know, you can't do that anymore either because they're coming after people who are selling used goods for inauthentic as well. So this is very bad news for people who sell used books and used media and who buy them like I do at book sales and, you know, estate sales and places like that where there is no receipt, or if there is, it's like, you know, 100 times, you know, $1 each equals $100. You know, that's your receipt. So that's really getting to be a problem. So, you know, if you're going to do arbitrage, you need to be very careful about your receipts. And one of the things we're telling people to do now is not only keep your receipt, of course, but keep your packing slips as well. So the reason why is they won't accept a packing slip as authentic, but usually if you can show them first the receipt and then the packing slip as backup, sometimes they'll accept it, like, okay. because that's part of the issue too, is people will go and they'll buy something online, they'll print off the receipt, and then they'll cancel the order, right? And then they'll go in and they'll manipulate the date. So by being able to show them the packing slip, which is usually a piece of paper that was printed, you know, so usually if they can see that scanned in as well as the receipt, they're more likely to believe it. But I'm just telling people, you know, don't, you know, I think it's time to look for another source of inventory. Okay, next screen. Okay, so the other hot button for Amazon, which is going strong after months and months and months, is product review programs. They call it manipulating the platform. So this is where basically people cheat in order to get advantage. And I know this is really hard to see on this slide, but this particular product, and by the way, this is not a client. I have lots of clients who sell Garcinia, Cambogia, but I just pulled this off. So this guy has over 9,000 product reviews for this extract, okay, and appetite suppressant. You know, that's almost as many as Harry Potter. And it's just not feasible that all of those reviews are real people, you know, who are just giving up their opinion because they love the product so much. You know that. You can look at that and you know that. Well, Amazon knows that too. And so they're really cracking down on people who abuse the product review service. You know, and there's a lot of ways that services used to abuse them. They're really cutting down on some of that. Mostly what we see is excessive giveaways, where people just give away a ton of free product and Amazon says it's too much. And then we see abuse where the reviewers who are getting the product for free or a discount aren't disclosing it. Some of them are so stupid that they'll order the product and they'll put up the review before the product's even arrived, which is pretty amazing for a supplement, right? It's like, talk about magic beans. They started to work before they even got there. Next screen, Eddie. Let me show you what this actually looks like. Because here's what happens. Every time someone gets caught, and they do get caught, they have to turn over to Amazon all of the reviews that violate policy. They have to, you don't see it here because I edited this, of course. Okay, I lost you guys for a second there. I'm back.
Okay. We'll get through this webinar. Trust me, guys.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, all of a sudden I was muted. I'm like, why am I muted? Anyway. Okay, this has been quite a night. Okay, so what I was saying about this is, obviously I'm not showing you the names, but we have to turn over to Amazon the names of all of the reviewers and reviews that violate policy, and what the review is and the issue. And so just to show you, this is just a few from this one of our clients. So it said, you know, here's a whole bunch that were reviewed within 1 day of purchase. And I mean, look at some of the crap they wrote. Now we're getting feedback, Eddie. So they said, this is a great way to keep the good health. Or, I love this pure Garcinia. I mean, like, really, how can they love it? They haven't even received it. And then there was a whole bunch who wrote reviews but didn't mention that they'd gotten it for free. Now, this particular client had thousands of these, okay? I'm not talking about just a few. And they had to turn them all over to Amazon, and then Amazon took them all down. And they not only took the reviewers down for my client, but anybody else that those reviewers had reviewed for across the platform all lost their reviews overnight. So if you spent a great deal of money running a product review program, this was really bad. So anyway, that's what Amazon's trying to fight. And so people who run their own product review program need to be very careful that it is compliant. And I will tell you, every single person who has told me that their program was compliant was wrong. And I mean, people come to me all the time and they're like, oh, but Cynthia, my program is compliant. And I'll look at it online for like 2 seconds and I'll be like, no, it's not. So be careful. Don't believe what the vendor tells you. Be sure you understand what the Amazon rules say about reviews. Okay, next slide.
Are you still getting your echo, Cynthia?
Next slide.
Next one after.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Oh, no, back. Okay. Oh.
I'm getting there.
All right. He'll find it. So the only other thing I wanted to say that there's been a lot of copyright infringement problems lately also. So lately, some evil sellers have discovered that it's a tactic, and they say, hey, this is great. I can take down my competition by claiming that they're violating my patent, my copyright, my whatever, and my registered trademarks, and they're doing it. And it's been awful. Okay, there's been some really egregious bad behavior. And so I will just tell all of you that when I get my clients reinstated on this issue, I then go after the other seller to get them removed. So do not play with this program. Don't screw around, because if they hire me, I'm coming after you. And that's what we do afterwards. But anyway, the first thing to do is to get them back. And so I have never seen so many copyright infringement problems as I've seen in the last few months. And sometimes they're legit, you know, like you've violated their whatever, and you just shut things down and everything's fine. You know, sometimes you think they're wrong. And so I've had clients who are like, no, this guy, you know, he says he has this, you know, this trademark or whatever, but, you know, he doesn't, or we had ours first, or it gets down to a he said, she said kind of thing. So we work with attorneys. We have a really great IP attorney, or we work with our client's IP attorney to get the legal perspective. And sometimes my clients will go at it full bore. They'll go after the other seller, you know, basically, and you know, try to get the issue resolved. Sometimes we'll have to prove to Amazon that it was a bogus trick. So copyright infringement is really a pain for sellers because it usually is quite expensive because you have to hire an attorney. You might want to hire someone like me. And all this time your listing is down. It could be a very valuable listing. In fact, it usually is. Somehow the copyright infringement guys never come after the product you sell one a month of. They come after the products that you're selling, you know, 200 a day of. And so I would just say that, you know, people are vulnerable if they have not properly registered their own brands and their own trademarks. And when you create your listing, you need to make sure you're not violating anyone else's trademarks. I mean, you would never create a listing claiming that you're Apple, right? You might sell, well, most people actually can't sell an Apple product. That's not a good example. Let's say Disney. So you're Disney, right? You're not going to say you're Disney. You might be selling a Disney product, but you're going to be very careful about how you write about it because you don't own Disney, right? And so I just tell people to think about that when they're adding products to the catalog, to think about, you know, who actually owns the brand and the copyright and what they're actually uploading. That's probably the best way to protect yourself down the road. And since so many of my clients are just piggybacking on other people's listings, they're getting in trouble along with everybody else when that listing is taken down. So anyway, not really good news there, but that's copyright infringement. We've seen a lot of it. And that's it. So I'm happy to take questions. You can go to the last slide, Eddie. And, you know, again, I talked about this earlier, but this is what we do we help our clients either get clean and stay clean. We help them get back if they're suspended. We help them with their ASINs. So that's, just who we are. But I'm happy to answer questions from the audience. In fact, let's look at the questions.
Yeah, so guys, if you guys have questions for Cynthia regarding any of these topics, there's a question field on your webinar session. Send the question over to me, and I'll read them out to her. One thing that I just want to request, if you have just general comments, just leave those out of the questions so I can filter through them easier. Only the questions that you want to ask Cynthia, please send them to that question field. So I do have one question for you so far, and that is, can you talk more about the push towards Amazon's push towards GS1 codes versus UPC codes that you can buy on sites like eBay, and how strictly is Amazon verifying UPCs, and what are you supposed to use for bundles?
Okay, Amazon is coming down on that pretty strict. Look, they have tens of millions of listings, maybe way more than that, but they have a lot of listings on Amazon, and it's going to take them a while to get through the whole catalog. But they are doing it. And what they're doing is they're comparing brands and UPC codes to the GS1. So what the GS1 is they assign extensions. So think about your phone number, right? The first 3 digits of your phone number is or actually the first 6, are like an extension, right? So you know that everybody that's in my case, the 214 area code is in the Dallas area, and the next 3 digits, that means I live in East Dallas, right? And then you get down to my unique number. Well, that's kind of how UPC code works. And so what the GS1 actually keeps track of is the brand extension, not every single UPC code they own, because some of those brands own a jillion. But if you were to buy 100,000 UPC codes from the GS1, if you were a large apparel manufacturer or something like that, and in the GS1 it would just show as your brand and your extension, which would be your first few digits, usually 4 to 6, and that's it. And so what happens is the machine is going through and doing a quick scan, and it says, okay, Disney starts with extension 12345, and you look and say, whoa, this says it's Disney, but it doesn't start with 12345. Right? Problem. So that is where it's a problem. And also, by the way, the GS1 is not always updated. For example, all those guys on eBay that are selling you UPC codes, they are selling you retired UPC codes. So they're not selling you like brand new, never used UPC codes. So what happens is you use that UPC code, and it may still be in the GS1 as belonging to someone else. So that's the problem. And, basically, if you're making bundles, okay, this is Howard's question, if you're making bundles, then you have to decide what kind of bundle it is. Like if you're selling, I'm going to pick on you, Howard, if you're selling, Howard's Happy Meals or whatever, or, Happy Bath Time Fun or Fun with Mermaids, or anyway, if you're selling something like that, and it's your bundle, maybe you're putting together a nice little gift package or whatever, then that's fine. And you're brand registered, and and you own that UPC code. And when you register your listing with Amazon as part of your brand, it knows that that UPC code belongs to you. So that's not going to be a problem for something that you own. Where it becomes a problem is if you're putting together a product that belongs to someone else and you're trying to label it that way. So if you're going to put together a Disney Princess bath time duo of shampoo and conditioner or something, and you're using your own UPC code, you can't do that because the Disney shampoo and conditioner, which have their own UPC codes, don't belong to you. So again, you would have to make it, bath time fun bundle, girls shampoo, princess themed, shampoo and condition. And then when they look at the picture, they can see that it's Disney Princess, right? But it can't be in the title. It can't be branded as a Disney bundle. And, basically that's what's different now. And so if you have a lot of bundles up there that are branded with somebody else's brand, that's going to be a problem for you. I think that answers the question.
So this whole GS1 UPC code situation, it really doesn't come into play for items that people source the traditional way that have their existing UPC codes that people can, if they're just listing one single item. This really comes into play if there's no UPC code or if they're making bundles, things of that nature, correct?
Right. And here's the other thing. Sometimes you may think, oh, but there is no UPC code for this item. Like I see that a lot with clothing, or people think, oh, well, there's no UPC code because there's not one, on the package, because maybe they're buying it off, at Marshall's, right, or whatever. And so they're thinking there is no UPC code, but they're wrong. If this is a brand, let's say Playtex or whatever, it probably has a UPC code. And so before you list it on Amazon, you should do your best to try and find the UPC code. Look it up on the manufacturer's website or, something like that, because they probably do. And if they have an extension in the GS1, you can bet that they have a UPC code for this product. So that's the thing, they have a UPC code. And so that's where buyers or sellers are getting in trouble now, because a lot of them put a lot of inventory up on Amazon, created the listing themselves, and just used one of their purchased UPC codes.
Got it. Next question is in relation to stores that are okay to supply receipts from. Nicole would like to know, is Dollar Tree or the 99-cent store a good place to submit receipts from? Why or why not?
No. Because, again, when they do their receipts, there's no detail on them whatsoever. So you might as well be buying from a thrift store, really. So, no, only if you have detail. Now, I will say the Dollar Tree, Dollar Store, whichever one is the one with the green logo, if you buy wholesale from them, they actually provide very good invoices, which are very clear. But if you're buying in the store, you're not going to get a detailed enough receipt.
It's really relating to like that Marshall's receipt you showed us before, when it just has the internal store number that Amazon has really nothing to reference, so you can't do much with that.
Right.
Got it. All right, next question says, what companies would you recommend getting invoices from in order to meet requirements for getting ungated? So obviously, not specific companies, but all the same type of market, but generally, what's the guidelines you would give for that in terms of making sure that they're going to meet the requirements for ungating?
Okay. So again, I would really make sure that you're buying this from a legitimate source and that you've set up an account with them. So again, don't go and buy 3 units from unknown named wholesaler. Okay, I'll use DVDs as an example. There are really only a few DVD distributors and wholesalers that are legit. Okay, you can either buy directly from the rights holder, so you can buy directly from Sony or, whatever, Fox, or you can buy from these very few handful of known and legitimate distributors. So if you're not buying from them, Amazon is going to know it, and they're not going to let you on, right? So they basically, especially DVDs, I would not get into DVDs to save my life, because that is, you want to talk about one of the most troublesome categories to be in. I have a DVD client, and I'm telling you, sometimes it's a fight. It's a real fight, because there's just so many issues with counterfeit and inauthentic. And so my clients who are doing well in this category, they're only buying from legitimate sources. And anyway, that's what I would say, is really be careful that who you're buying. I mean, I would check out the reputation of your supplier. Check out how long they've been in business. ask them to prove that they are, in fact, an authorized distributor or reseller of this product. So if they're a legitimate, distributor for, I can't even think of a company right now, but they'll prove it. Like, they can show you. Like, maybe their name will be on the manufacturer's website as one of their authorized distributors, or they can produce a letter from the manufacturer that says such and such company is one of our authorized distributors. So if you can't get that from your source, if they don't have proof that they are authorized, don't bother, and that's what I would say. Again, if you know a guy who knows a guy, he's probably the wrong guy.
So so on that topic then, what would you say is a good way to find a legitimate wholesaler in terms of Amazon's eyes versus a non-legitimate one? What are the things you're looking for?
Well, I guess I'm looking for a history, a reputation. I'm looking for them to maybe be in the Better Business Bureau. All right, I'll give you an example. So I sell candy, and my candy wholesaler that I use the most, they're local, which is really cool for me because they have the most amazing showroom. And they've been selling candy wholesale for 35 years. They're very well known in the industry. They're the only company that actually distributes Jelly Bellies, right? So everybody buys their Jelly Bellies from them, and whether they know it or not. And they absolutely can trace their product directly to the manufacturer. It's not even a problem. If I've ever had an issue about where something came from or what the freshness date on it is, I mean, it's just not a problem because they're the real deal. And so I guess what I'm saying is when you find a supplier, you need to kind of put them through their paces. In my case, I was able to actually go to the showroom, which was really nice, but I know that's not always possible. Meet with the salesperson, ask them, where they got their product. And then if you look at the boxes that come to the Prep and Pack Center, you can see that they're direct from the manufacturer because all the crap that they put on the side of the box is very clear about where it's coming from. So that's what I'm saying. If you're dealing with someone who's legitimate, it's actually pretty easy because they'll answer all your questions.
Got it. Amazon terms of service state that you need to list at the lowest offered price on their platform. How aggressive are they with this? I'm assuming, Howard, means in terms of if you're selling on multiple platforms, you need to have the lowest price on theirs. If I'm wrong, correct me. But let's assume that's the question. So if you're selling products on multiple platforms, Amazon TOS says that you have to have the lowest price on theirs. How aggressive are they, and what's the kind of enforcement around that? What have you seen?
Okay, so you're talking about, oh, I got the echo again, Eddie. So you're talking about price parity. So absolutely, they're very aggressive about that. So if you're selling on multiple platforms and you're offering your product at a lower price on eBay or somewhere else, they will catch you in a heartbeat. I mean, I suppose there's probably some people who've gotten away with it, but I can't tell you how many clients I've seen who've gotten warned. You do usually get a warning first, but that's it. You get one warning. And so basically what you need to do is figure out your pricing in such a way that you can keep, parity, or at least, like you said, have Amazon be your lowest price if you're going to have different prices on different platforms.
Got it. What would you say in terms of when you receive notices from Amazon, whether they be policy violations or warnings, if you kind of stack rank what people should be looking for, and when they receive violation notices or notices of something that they did wrong in their account from Amazon, should they respond to every single one of them, or what's the normal plan of action when they have things like that?
Okay, well, definitely every time there's a policy violation, they should definitely answer it. without a doubt. Whatever Amazon wants, you should answer it. If there's a warning, consider it for what it is, which is a warning, and, take steps to correct whatever the issue is. And you might want to tell them what you did as well. I'm getting the echo again. And then there's other things that are more like notices. So they're like, I'm trying to think of a good example of a notice. Well, okay, so here's something, like the FDA puts out a warning and it says, this ingredient is, hazardous. And so Amazon will immediately send out an email to everybody whose product has that ingredient in it and shut them just for that product, right? And then they'll give you a notice, because they don't really hold that against you, because when you set it up to Amazon, it was legitimate, but now it's not. So they'll give you a chance to close things down and bring your inventory back, and they don't hold it against you. But if you are getting policy violations like inauthentic or counterfeit or copyright infringement, and you're not dealing with it, they'll hold that against you. And so you start to get a couple of these, 2 or 3 of these piled up, and they'll shut you down.
So over what period of time would you say is the norm in terms of you want to stay, I guess, violation free, or how long are they looking back on your account for violations?
It depends on the violation. So some violations, they will go back a year. Others, they're just looking maybe in the last 6 months. And there is a difference. Like, if somebody returns a product because they say it's defective, that's really different than if they return a product saying it's not as described. Okay? So because defective is kind of a normal reason why something is returned, and Amazon expects you to have a certain amount of sort of normal returns, just like any retail store, right? So you can have defective claims up to about 2% of your sales, and it's not a problem. But some of the other claims are big problems, and you can only have a couple of them before they'll shut it down. So if you get a not as described as a reason for a return on a product, once, twice, okay, you start getting 3 or 4 of them, Amazon's like, there's a problem, and they'll shut down your listing. And if you have this going on across a lot of products, like I have guys who are selling thousands of products a day, and very quickly Amazon can start to see a pattern, and they'll say there's something going on. What's wrong with all these listings that nobody thinks the product that they bought is what they thought it was?
Got it. There's in your seller account, there's a score, pop score, I believe, that is your overall rating, and it takes into account a lot of things. Can you go into detail about that score and what sellers should be looking out for in terms of that, or what makes up that score?
Okay, yeah, so the perfect order, basically they want it to be high. So you want it to be like 97%, 98, 99, you want it to be really good. You want to have as many perfect orders as possible. And in Amazon's world, a perfect order is buyer comes to website, buys product, receives product on time, is happy with product, the end. That's a perfect order. If they are happy and they leave a product review or they leave positive seller feedback, then that's a bonus, right? And you get bonus points for that. But if they don't, that's okay. It's a perfect order, and that's what Amazon wants to happen all day long, all across the platform, perfect orders. And so when they're not perfect, that's when you get to be, a problem. And so the perfect order score, more often than not, with most people, reflects a poor performing product. So what I mean by that is it's usually not all of their inventory that's a problem. They're probably having a couple of listings that are not performing well. Maybe they're really badly defective, or maybe whatever. There's something going on. And so most of the time, if you can zero in on those few problem ASINs and clean them up, your POP score will go boing, it goes right up, and you're doing well. And so if you look under the POP score on your metrics, you'll see there's an imperfect orders report. And so if you print it off, I look at 60 days worth, and you sort it by ASIN, you can very quickly see which of your ASINs are having problems. And by the way, an imperfect order is also if your buyer contacts you for any reason. So if they send you an email, that's an imperfect order. Obviously, if they file an A to Z claim, if there's a chargeback, all of those imperfect. So that's what the imperfect orders report shows you, is exactly what happened to get you that score and which of your ASINs are having a lot of imperfect orders. So maybe you can zero in on what the problem is and fix it.
Got it. A few more questions. So let's say you send in a shipment to Amazon and you mess up the shipment. You send the wrong products to the wrong place, do a miscount, you mislabel products, you find out, but it's already been shipped. It's in transit to Amazon. So what do you do? Because you don't want Amazon to receive it and send the wrong products out, or it negatively come back and affect you. So what's the process? If you realize you made a problem before you sell a product, let's say it's on the way to FBA, what do you do? What's the go-to? Will Amazon fix your issues for you, or do you have to take action yourself?
Both. So first, you got to let them know that there is a problem and that it's coming in. And it depends on what the problem is. It might be something that they can fix for you there, or it might be something there you have to bring the inventory back. So I guess depending on what the issue is, I would tell people if you detect it and realize it before it gets to Amazon, I would call Amazon and speak to one of their FBA specialists. And so not the guy in India, ask for an FBA specialist. And usually you'll get somebody in the U.S., not always, but usually, and they're more senior, and they can help you figure out what you need to do to get that inventory either fixed there or returned. So most of the time the solution is going to be they're going to send it back to you, and you'll fix it yourself.
Is it safe to assume that, let's say you utilize Amazon's prep services for things like labeling, for example, and they do labeling incorrectly, and it causes, let's say, product A to be sold to someone who bought product B, and it's just because it's labeled wrong. And let's say you get flagged for it, or Amazon comes back at you saying there was an error, or the item is not as described, or whatever ends up happening. Can you use the excuse that Amazon messed up, and will Amazon accept that, or is it really the burden back on you regardless of who messed it up in the first place?
Right. So it may be Amazon's fault, but you're responsible. And so you can say, but they did it. But think of it this way. It's sort of like if you had an outside fulfillment house that you were using instead of Amazon, and they screwed up. You basically would have to go hash it out with them, right? And that's what Amazon expects you to do. Is they expect you to go fix the problem. So it wasn't your fault, but it's your responsibility. Now, I have found that our fulfillment house, does not operate very well as our fulfillment house. It's really hard to get them to do what they're supposed to do. So they will. It just takes a lot of work to get them to fix their mistakes. But yeah, you can't really go and finger point. You just have to say, this mistake was made by, the fulfillment house. I've talked to them. Here's what I'm doing to fix the problem. You just have to be very proactive and show them that you're going to fix the problem, even if it's not your fault.
Got it. So there are 2 questions remaining. I just want to remind everyone in the audience that if you have additional questions, that you're wondering about relating to anything Amazon related, suspensions, restrictions, ungating, selling policies, make sure you ask that question because we will get to them. And they're very important as you grow your business, not only from now, but as you expand into new things and new channels and new categories, new products. It's important to know the general rules of thumb. So if anything's in the back of your mind or you're just curious about something in general, definitely send over the question. But with that said, I'll read off our last two, or the first of our last two. And that's the first one is regarding, I guess you call them robots. The robots or the computer system that essentially reads the comments that are left on Amazon as feedback from buyers, for example, or when buyers send you messages and they could use certain keywords that the computer picks up on. What are some of those keywords, and what do you do as a seller when, for example, you might have been falsely accused of something that just because a computer system picked up a word?
Okay, so Amazon is looking, just so you know where they're finding these words, they're looking in your buyer messages. So if you get an email from a buyer, they're looking in your negative feedback. They're even looking at the product reviews. They're looking at, especially for private label products, they're looking for, they're looking in your returns. Okay, so again, the reason that a buyer gives for their return, they're looking for negative returns, and they're looking for those negative words. So they're really looking everywhere, which is what makes it hard, because you're like, what? Where did that come from? And everything that I just named to you is a separate report in Amazon. It's a real pain. So that's it. And so the key trigger words are things like counterfeit, fake, not as described, inauthentic. And by the way, you would say to yourself, oh, but Cynthia, nobody would actually use the word inauthentic. It's not natural. Except, guess how many of your buyers are third-party sellers on Amazon? A lot of them. And so, I mean, there's millions of us out there. So that's I can always tell when feedback has been left by a third-party seller. Usually they're a little bit snotty, and they use, the words, right, that only the insiders know. And you're like, damn it, right? It's like, but yeah, so they will sometimes use those exact words. Fake, bogus, bootleg, let's see.
Just okay with nothing else?
Hmm?
Just okay with nothing else, and they rate it a 3 because you can't get that removed?
Oh, well, they don't hold that against you, but it just means you can't get it removed. Yeah, if you really want to mess with somebody for some reason, and you want to mess up their, buy something from them and leave them, seller feedback that's a 3, and just say okay. They will curse you and curse you. So anyway, but don't do it to me. Just saying. I will see the pattern. But yeah, that's the other thing too. But they don't hold that against you. What they hold against you are those words, those trigger words, and their algorithm is pretty, sophisticated. A lot of times, unhappy buyers will leave long, rambling messages, and you're just like trying to follow this, and yet Amazon will be able to pick out, what's going on in that message and why they're unhappy. And if they feel like it's a reason that you should deal with, that it's your fault, you'll find yourself suddenly getting a warning, or having that listing shut down, or even having your account shut down. And it happens pretty fast.
Got it. The next question has to do with returns. If, in general, when you look at all the categories that are on Amazon, which there are many, is Amazon more lenient in some categories versus others in terms of return percentages that they will allow before they think that there's a problem on your side?
Yeah. So they look at normal retail return rate for each category. So for most of the catalogs, it's 2% or less. But if you're selling electronics, it'll be higher. They would be about up to 6%. they wouldn't have a problem with that. If you're selling apparel, and again, it depends on what kind. So shoes has a higher rate of return than normal clothing. Apparently, it's really hard to find shoes that fit and that are comfortable. And so maybe a blouse is more forgiving, I don't know. But a lot of times with shoes, people will buy 2 sizes and they'll return 1. So, I mean, if you think about that, it's not unusual to see a 12 to 15% return rate in those categories, which if you're thinking about your profitability, you better keep that in mind too. You know, that great deal doesn't seem so great if you have to factor in that you're going to have a 12 to 15% return rate. So, side note. But, yeah, so they do keep track of certain categories that have a lot of returns. There are also some categories that have virtually no returns.
Should sellers be cautious when they find a product that they're looking to sell, or they're looking to source a product, and they look at the listing online and the review rating is, let's say, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star? Is that a cause for concern, right? Just right then and there?
I guess it would depend on what the reviews were for. So, you know, if they're just, you know, complaining because they had a bad experience with the seller, you know, because people do that, no. But if they're consistently complaining that the product falls apart after 2 months, yeah, you know, beware, because you may sell a lot of them, but if they're going to break after 2 months, I mean, I think it's worth looking at negative reviews and then determining which ones are of, you know, of real concern and which ones are just maybe a bad day or, you know, one damaged product or something. Or it might even tell you that this is a product that breaks a lot. Like, I have a client that sells a lot of glass. He sells, oh gosh, it's latte glasses, right? And they're glass, and they're sold as a set, and they come with fancy spoons. And he has a huge breakage problem, and one of the times that he was suspended, that was a huge part of it, was because of all this breakage. And so I said to him, either you need to improve your packaging and because he was merchant fulfilled, or you need to stop selling glass. I mean, that's pretty straightforward advice. And I checked back in with him a few months later. He's suspended again, and I say to him, why are you still selling glass? Okay, so he had not solved his breakage problem, and he was still, you know, above acceptable limits for breakage. And I'm like, maybe you should not sell glass. So again, if you're looking at, you know, some negative reviews about a product that's inherent in the product, you probably don't want to sell it because it's a lemon. But if it's just about something like packaging, something that you could fix, like, oh, I'll just package it better, you know, sell it.
Got it. The question we're getting now is a good one, actually. Everyone on Facebook groups, they share the same wholesalers that they use to get ungated. When multiple people are saying they use the same company to get invoices and ungated, doesn't that tip off Amazon to that and make it harder to become ungated?
Yes and no. Okay, so yeah, Amazon got wise to that. But actually, what they really cracked down on is that people were basically just faking invoices from those sources and sending them in. To get an account with a wholesaler, which you know, Eddie, I mean, you have to actually, like, it's practically like applying for credit, right? You have to do all this stuff, set up payment, EFT, you know, they check your references. It's a process. Like, you can't just get set up with a wholesaler today. It's going to be an approval process, and then they'll send you out product. And you got to send in your sales tax certificate, all this stuff. Well, a lot of people don't want to do that, so they would just fake their invoices, or they would use these sources that they knew were legit, but they would go in and they would buy like 5 units or 10 units, right, just so they could get ungated. And Amazon sees through that. And so after a while, I mean, even the wholesalers will get pissed off because they have all these little dinky orders, right, that are, or maybe it's just a couple $100. The minimum order might be a couple $100. And then they never get an order again from those guys ever, right? And so they began complaining to Amazon about this as well as Amazon began seeing all these tiny orders, relatively speaking, tiny, from these suppliers. And so that's why I said in my slide, they know when you're not serious. And so, again, a lot of people would just go in and get ungated, and they never intended to buy from those sources ever again. They tended to continue to buy from wherever, I don't know, thrift stores, wherever they were getting their stuff, and put it up there. And so, yeah, Amazon will catch that, and they have shut people down for that, or they've just not accepted them in the first place. So what I would say is if you're going to order from a source, and it's a legitimate source, make a real order. Have multiple items on there that you will actually sell. Concept.
And true or false, Amazon keeps a record of those invoices that you send them. So if I send an invoice from ABC Company and you send an invoice from ABC Company, they could very well check them against each other, and they could check the phone number, website, address. Like, what do they do with the address, for example, on the invoices?
Well, definitely if they don't match, they would then have to go in and verify it further, like, why does this one not match? And so, again, if they have multiple invoices from the same supplier, they'll know which one is the legitimate address. They usually will check out things online. So if your supplier has a website, which, by the way, if your supplier does not have a website, don't get an invoice from them. I can't tell you how many people have been submitting stuff from suppliers who don't have a website. I'm like, of course Amazon thinks they're selling off the back of a truck. They are. I mean, they don't even have a website, really? So, and they better have their website too. But Amazon will even check Google Earth. Like, we had one guy who just made up an address, right? And it was like, it ended up being some vacant lot, and you could see it from Google Earth. It's like this empty lot. And, yeah, they rejected that invoice. So I would just say to people, yeah, be careful about that. They do keep a database. They do check. And they can pretty quickly smell if there's something manipulated about your invoice. So
I'm kind of continuing on the topic of Amazon do's and don'ts and general policies. So I'm a new seller, and let's just assume I am making a lot of assumptions, and I don't really care to read the policies. So I'm allowed to have more than one selling account without asking, right? And I'm allowed to have more than one buying account, and I'm allowed to use my Prime shipping benefits on my buying account as benefits my selling stamp. Why not? Like, what's the do's and don'ts behind all that stuff?
Oh boy, you're such a bad boy, Eddie. Okay, he's kidding. He's got a very clean account, but I'm telling you, people do this every day, and I get people who come to me and their buyer account has been closed down. And I'm like, do you know how hard it is to get your buyer account closed down? I mean, you have to really be egregious for them to shut down your buyer account. And so usually that person is either abusing the Prime program or they're abusing their returns. And the Prime program, Amazon is very adamant that you can only use it for personal purchases. So if you're in there buying, 100 units of some deal, lightning deal of the day or something, and having it sent to your address, and you're going to send it back in to sell, they know that, right? They're not stupid, and they'll shut you down. And here's the problem with losing your buyer account. Not only can you no longer buy stuff on Amazon, which is tragic, but you can no longer sell stuff on Amazon either, and they'll shut down your seller account as well. And they don't forgive. I'm working on a couple of cases now where I'm trying to get a buyer account reinstated, but they generally won't forgive. As I said, you have to really be behaving badly. And for people who lie about returns because they're cheap and they don't want to pay for shipping, every time someone does that to you, you know how much it pisses you off, right? Well, just believe in karma, because Amazon is keeping track of that. Every time somebody returns a product and they get free shipping back, they're keeping an eye on it. And you're allowed, last I heard, it was 26 for your lifetime on Amazon. So if you're like me, who's been buying on Amazon since the 90s, I think, late 90s, even if you're doing only 1 or 2 a year, it adds up, right? But most of my returns I pay for because I changed my mind or it didn't fit or whatever. But there are people who, make a claim for every single one, and they get caught eventually, and Amazon shuts them down. The other thing is, if you buy a bunch of stuff and you return it all for, defective or damaged or for whatever reason you give, not as described, or they'll shut you down faster because they'll suspect that you're abusing it, right? Because most people, when they buy something on Amazon, they keep it. I mean, they bought it for a reason, right? And so if they return it, sure, once in a while you return it. It's broken. It's whatever. But if you're returning stuff all the time, no, they won't let you do that. So just keep that in mind, because people don't really think about their buyer account or that they could lose it, but you absolutely can. And then, like I said, if you lose your buyer account, you lose your seller account as well. Oh, and don't open up accounts. So I can't tell you how many of my clients who were suspended thought, oh, I'll be clever and I'll just open up another account in my wife's name or my husband's name. They won't know. And all I can say is it just makes my life a lot harder trying to get them reinstated because, of course, they get caught immediately and it gets shut down. And now Amazon thinks that they're trying to get around the rules. So
don't make it worse.
Don't make it worse.
Right. So, but in terms of the seller account, there are situations where Amazon will grant you a second account. So what are some of the reasons behind that in terms of them approving a second seller account? Valid reasons.
Yeah, there has to be a compelling reason. And, one of the most common reasons is, like if the category you want to sell in is really just not good. Like if people who sell sexual wellness, basically products, they pretty much automatically get their own second account. So because again, nobody wants to see the dildos next to the baby toys, right, on the shop front. And so sometimes if you can show, like I have one guy who actually has 3 legitimate accounts, and one of them is for his private label products, one of them is for baby and toys, and then one of them is for sexual wellness. So they did allow him to have a separate account just for his private label stuff, so technically the 3rd account. But for the most part, they don't. And I always tell people, ask first, don't create the 2nd account. And as a last note, people keep telling me, they're like, Cynthia, I've had 2 accounts for 10 years, they've never caught me, I've mastered it, right? And I said, have you ever been suspended before? No, this is their first time. I'm like, well, they're about to catch you. Because here's the thing, they don't put the trace on you until after you're suspended. So technically, you could have a lot of accounts, and they wouldn't know until one of them gets suspended, and then they'll all go down.
Some almost like dominoes simultaneously.
Yeah.
Reverting back to the invoices that people submit to Amazon for getting ungated, is it a problem necessarily if not related to the business address of your supplier, but if your address as the ship to bill to, is it a problem if that address is a residence? Does it have to be a business on your side? Does Amazon care?
No, it doesn't have to be a business, but it has to be the address they have on file for you. So people who work out of their home often have multiple accounts, right? So, like they may have a P.O. box, and, then there's their home address. They might have a warehouse, right? So the thing is, the address that stuff is being shipped to has to be an address that Amazon recognizes as yours. So that's all that matters. So if you want to send it to your house and they have your home address, that's fine. That's fine. Just so it's your address. Mm-hmm. And if you're incorporated, which I suggest that most people should be, then they definitely need the address, your legal address.
Got it. Last and final question that we have is relating. This is one that I gets talked about a lot, and I laugh when I see this because I feel like I answer this question on a daily basis. Should I commingle or should I not commingle? And real quick, what does that mean for the people who are brand new and don't know the difference?
Okay, so commingling is where you might buy stuff by the case or the pallet. And it's all brand new product coming maybe direct from your the manufacturer or whatever. And and it might be a hot selling product for Amazon. You may choose to do stickerless commingling is what they call it. And that's where basically Amazon just takes it in, notes that you have, 100 units or however many it is, and all of the inventory is just, it's literally that. It's all mixed in. So when somebody wants to buy that, Disney Princess Barbie doll or whatever, I guess they're not Barbie anymore, but that Disney Princess doll, then they just pull the nearest one out and send it, right? Because technically they should all be identical, right? So that's how it works, and it's nice for the seller because you don't have to put stickers on anything, right? You can just send it in. So that's why people do stickerless commingles. And the problem is if there's a bad apple, if there's somebody in there that's commingling with you that is maybe buying knockoff product or counterfeit or just sending in really crappy product that they got at a liquidator maybe that's dirty, dusty, bumpy, you could get a complaint for your product quality, and it's not even your product that they got. So I always tell people it's better to be stickered because even though Amazon will do the exact same thing, literally if somebody in California buys my product, they're going to ship it from the California warehouse, even though my product may all be in Dallas, right? And then they'll take care of getting more product over to California later. But so Amazon does commingling for you no matter what, but at least if you have a sticker on it, it's a lot easier to prove whether it was yours or not. So you could say, hey, this buyer was unhappy, but it's not my product.
And just so people understand, when you're stickering, it's essentially I don't want to call it a UPC code because it's not, but it's essentially another code that goes on top of the UPC. That is it's a alphanumeric number. I think they all start with X, if I'm right, Cynthia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called the FNSQ.
Yeah.
And that is the fulfillment house SKU, basically.
It basically combines the original UPC code with your seller ID, so they know who it's from and they know what product it is. It's essentially another level of insurance, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that number tells them everything about your product, the condition, the price you're selling it originally for, the how many units you sent in, everything. That FNSQ is unique to them, and it helps them track your stuff.
Great. So we have now officially tackled all of the questions in the Q&A, which is awesome. I just want to make sure everybody knows also that Cynthia is not here just to help you when you do have a problem. She does offer a slew of preventative services as well. So if you're looking for your account to be evaluated, or if you just want some general help before you go down a certain path, there are a variety of services that she offers that can help you with that. that are good to look into, so you don't have to run into a bigger problem down the road that will cost you possibly a lot more time and money than doing something right the first time would. So I'll just state that so you guys have that information. And again, thank you very much, Cynthia, for joining us on this call. For those of you who want to stay connected with Cynthia, I highly encourage it that you do. She is in my group as well as the Rockstars group as well. So you'll see her post every so often, and if you tag her in a post, so she tries to get to every single one of them as possible, but there are many, so bear with her. But her Facebook fan page, Online Sales Step by Step, her website, onlinesalesstepbystep.com, which has a very in-depth blog section about everything that is current relating to Amazon policies and what's new and what's the hot topics. So that's a very good website for you to read and check out and find a whole slew of information about pretty much anything. And then, of course, her book, Suspension Prevention, is available both digitally and physically as well. And that has a lot of great information in there regarding topics from A to Z. So again, I apologize everybody for the technical issues we had, especially at the start and a little bit throughout the presentation, but we tried to get through as much as we could given that issue. So I do see we lost a lot of our initial attendees probably because of that delay, but the good news is we have been recording this presentation, so I will make sure that the recording is uploaded to both pages once we finish, so you'll be able to revert back to this at a later time, and the guys who didn't make the call will still be able to see that as well on their own time. So thank you again, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Cynthia, and we will all see you in the very near future. Take care.
All right. Good night.